Hello friends, how to flying flights?
Welcome to The Explainer. So let's just dive right in, because today we are going on a journey. And honestly, not just any journey. We're embarking on this cinematic, highly structured exploration of one of humanity's absolute greatest everyday achievements commercial flight. Have you ever sat in a window seat, looked out at the wing, and just wondered about the exact sequence of events that takes this massive, heavy machine from a dead standstill on the ground to cruising effortlessly through the clouds? Well, today we're going to break down that engineering marvel step by step from the gate all the way up to the open sky. Right off the bat, here's our entire roadmap. It's a complete 10-step visual storyboard. You see, the incredibly complex procedure of flying can actually be broken down into these highly digestible, distinct visual moments. By walking through this exact sequence together, we can entirely demystify what's going on, both inside the cockpit and outside the aircraft. We're literally taking thousands of engineering micro marvels and organizing them into a sequence that just makes perfect sense. Okay, here's our flight plan for this explainer. We'll be tracing the aircraft's chronological path through 4 escalating phases. First, the preparation phase. Second, the runway journey. Third, the highly anticipated takeoff. And fourth, stable flight. Let's get moving. Starting things off with Section 1, the preparation phase. Because before we can defy gravity, we have to establish a baseline of absolute safety on the ground. Let's walk through the early timeline here. You've kind of got to think of these ground steps as building up potential energy for the journey ahead. We move from the aircraft just sitting there ready at the gate to meticulous prep inside the cockpit, leading right up to the moment we are pushed back from the terminal. You know, every great journey starts with methodical, calm preparation, and aviation is basically the ultimate example of that. Zooming in on those first 2 critical steps. Step 1, the aircraft is in a ready state at the gate, and passengers are eagerly boarding. Now, this massive machine isn't just a vehicle. It's a combination of thousands of engineered systems, just waiting to be awakened. Then we move into Step 2, cabin and cockpit prep. In the cabin, the crew is actively performing safety checks to make sure every single passenger is secure. Meanwhile, up in the cockpit, the pilots are completely dialed in. They're verifying the flight plan, checking all system settings. The crucial takeaway here is that this marvel actually begins with strict human protocols, long before the engines even roar to life. And that brings us to Section 2, the runway journey. Prep is done, doors are closed, it's time to shift the energy and actually start moving toward the sky. Step 3 introduces a term you've probably heard before, pushback. But what does that actually mean? Well, airplanes generally don't use a reverse gear to back away from the gate. Instead, they rely on this specialized ground vehicle called a tug. This tug physically hooks up to the aircraft and shoves it backward from the terminal out onto the taxiway. It's a fascinating little moment where this multi-million-dollar flying machine relies entirely on a small, super powerful ground truck just to get started. So once we're pushed back, we enter Step 4, the taxi phase. Taxiing is when the aircraft navigates designated paths, taxiways, to reach its exact departure point on the runway. This is a really cool milestone because it's the start of the active flight sequence. The ground equipment is gone and the pilots are now fully steering and navigating the aircraft completely under its own power. We're transitioning from the terminal to the main stage. Next is Step 5, and honestly, this is where that microtension really builds. It's called the lineup. The taxiing is done, and the aircraft turns to a line perfectly straight down the center of the runway. And everything just stops for a second. The aircraft is completely prepared for takeoff. If you've ever flown, you know this exact feeling, right? It's the ultimate moment of anticipation. The engines hum, the path is crystal clear in front of you, and you're just waiting for that final clearance. Which launches us straight into Section 3, the takeoff. This is the climax of our ground journey and the explosive beginning of our time in the air. Step 6, the takeoff. This is literal cinematic power. The engines are commanded to operate at full maximum thrust. The aircraft accelerates so rapidly down the runway, it literally presses you back into your seat. And then the magic happens. The plane lifts off, leaving the Earth behind. I mean, the sheer engineering power required to take hundreds of tons of metal and people and transition it from the ground up into the air, it's nothing short of spectacular. But hey, the pilot's job isn't over the second the wheels leave the tarmac. The sequence of events they have to manage immediately after liftoff is rapid, and it is highly precise. Action 1 is that liftoff we just talked about. Right after that comes Action 2, the initial climb. And then Action 3, gear up. Let's break those next 2 down. In step 7, the initial climb, the aircraft is obviously gaining altitude, but it has to be done so carefully. The pilots are strictly controlling the speed and the nose angle to ensure a safe, steady ascent. Then comes step 8, gear up. Once safely airborne, the landing gear gets pulled right back into the belly of the plane. Think back to your last flight. Right after takeoff, you almost always hear this heavy mechanical thud from beneath the floorboards, right? That is step 8, happening directly beneath you. Now, you might be wondering, why rush to pull the wheels up so quickly anyway? Well, the engineering logic is super interesting. Leaving that landing gear extended creates a massive amount of wind resistance, also known as drag. By pulling the gear up and tucking it into the fuselage, the aircraft instantly becomes sleek and streamlined. Retracting the gear dramatically reduces that drag, allowing for maximum aerodynamic efficiency as the plane climbs higher. It's absolutely vital for both speed and saving fuel. After the intense energy of that takeoff and the steep climb, we finally reach section 4, stable flight. We can take a breath, bring the tone down a bit, and appreciate reaching cruising altitude. This is where the heavy lifting is completely done. Step 9 is the cruise phase. The aircraft has arrived at a stable, high altitude way above the weather, and the journey transforms into this quiet, peaceful glide. Then we hit step 10, stable flight. Inside the cockpit, the digital displays show that all metrics, engines, altitude, cabin pressure, are completely normal and secure. The pilots basically transition from the intense physical flying of a takeoff to monitoring this incredibly advanced technology while the plane just confidently eats up the miles. The source material summarizes this beautifully with a quote that translates to, "A safe, stable flight is a marvel of modern technology." And it truly, absolutely is. When you look back at the highly orchestrated 10 steps we just walked through together, arriving at this serene, stable point up in the stratosphere is a total triumph of human ingenuity. You know, the way we experience this breakdown really matters too. Framing this whole mechanical process as a cinematic production helps us appreciate it on a deeper level. Just imagine watching these 10 steps unfold in stunning 4K Ultra HD, cutting between external runway views and the pilot's perspective inside the cockpit. Add in the authentic audio of roaring engines, air traffic control chatter, layer it with epic music in a deep, clear voiceover. That combination turns a standard educational breakdown into a sensational, emotional experience. It honestly makes you fall in love with aviation all over again. So, we've broken down the engineering, the timelines, and the incredible sequence of events that makes commercial flight possible. Which leaves me with just one final thought for you. The very next time you step onto a plane, settle into your seat, and look out that window, are you going to be able to spot all 10 of these precise steps happening in real time? I highly encourage you to look out for them. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, happy flying.